So Westworld Season 3 kicks off this Sunday night, and I'm going to be going through all my predictions and kind of expanding on theories that I have for the upcoming season in this video. I'm going to be discussing kind of the plan of Dolores, where I see Maeve going this season, also some other things that we're kind of unsure on that we can kind of start to maybe look into a bit more deeply, like the Man in Black. I'm really just giving you my overall predictions for the season. Before I get into the video, if you want to watch reviews of every single episode coming out for Season 3 and also see a review of the entire season, along with separate videos discussing certain topics as the season progresses, then subscribe to the channel and turn on your notifications. Also, if you enjoy this video, give it a like rating. Without further ado, let's get into my Westworld Season 3 predictions. Now, obviously, Westworld is one of them shows that I guess you cannot fully predict what's going to happen because there's just so much narrative twists, complications and detail that I think trailers and marketing doesn't really show us. So whatever I say in this video, I guarantee most of it will probably be just touching the surface of what will actually happen. But obviously it's great to predict, it's great to make theories, it kind of gets people thinking about the season more and talking about it. So whatever you think and whatever I think may happen, may not, but I still want to hear what you guys have to say. So let me know down below what your list of predictions are for this season. I'm going to get into mine straight away, discussing what I think is going to happen. I think based on the marketing campaign we've been getting for Westworld Season 3, and in particular the announcement trailer that we got like a few weeks ago, I think it was like a month ago, which showed us a timeline of events. This trailer dealt with kind of the setup of a war. It discussed how us as a human species are being contempt and constantly getting ourselves back into a war or a conflict. I mean, we've seen it throughout history with the different world wars and kind of other wars that we've had in our history. The history of us as a species is war. And I think that the way that the developers are approaching the marketing campaign this year with Westworld Season 3 suggests to me that we are going to see the beginning and in particular the setup of a new war. But I think that this war that we're going to see play out, or at least start in Westworld Season 3, is going to have many complications. In particular, we're going to have hosts who disagree with hosts, whether you're talking about Bernard and Maeve heavily disagreeing with the approach that Dolores is taking, and then also you've got kind of humans like Caleb who are being introduced this season who very much don't like the way the people in power are treating them, and in particular treating their data and using it against them to keep them suppressed and keep them in this constant state of wanting to kind of rise up the chart, but they can't do that. So I think we're going to see the complications of different sides in this war, and I think the end of Season 2 perfectly showed that. It showed Dolores telling Bernard in that final sequence that you're going to fight me, you're going to disagree essentially, but our kind will have endured. And, you know, that's kind of the running plot theme that I think we're going to see explored more in Season 3. Now I'm going to get on to some of the characters that are going to situate in that war that I think is going to play out, or at least start, by the end of Season 3. In particular, we've got Dolores and Caleb, and if you want to see a whole theory on why I think a certain character is in Charlotte Hale's host body, and I think that's an important twist to the narrative, you can go watch that theory. There's probably a link in the description. If not, it's one of the newer videos on my channel, but it's an entire 15-minute theory where I go into depth on who I think is in Charlotte Hale's host body and why I think that is important to Dolores in this upcoming season. I think whoever is in this host body, and obviously you can watch that video to find out who I think is in Charlotte Hale's host body, is very important to the whole data theme that they are playing out in Season 1, Season 2, and even more so in Season 3. How that data is used against not just humans, but also the hosts in Westworld. And I think Dolores is going to use that data, or in particular the guest data, against some of the humans in the real world. And maybe we might not see that too much this season, but I think it is definitely going to play out into that point and hopefully expand upon Season 4 and 5. Again, I may be completely wrong, but I think the reason we did not see that guest data completely destroyed even though we saw the host backups completely destroyed, is because Dolores will probably end up using that in the real world. And this is where I come to the plan of Dolores. I think what we're going to see is Dolores obviously as someone who is changing. She says to Bernard at the end of season 2, before she shoots him and then obviously rebuilds him in the real world, she says to him that, "You do know, Bernard, we are capable of change. Ford built us that way." And the fact that they are capable of change and, you know, capable of making their own opinions and choices now is something that I think is going to lead into the plan of Dolores, and in particular her kind of sympathetic nature to the humans who are suffering. And I think we see that under Caleb this season, and there's a lot of people who predict that she's going to go on a full reckless path, and I wouldn't be surprised if at the end of the season something really impactful happened to her that would get her to that point. But I think the season is very much going to start in a way that shows that she's starting to be more sympathetic towards the humans, because they are essentially treated like the guests in this real world. And, you know, if you look at some of the interviews we've been seeing come out lately, Dolores and some of the actors who play the hosts, including Bernard, say that we are essentially seeing a role reversal. We are seeing now the hosts essentially being the guests and the humans being the hosts in this season, and we're going to see the weird parallels to that. And that's why the show is still called Westworld. All the themes that we saw start up in season 1 and 2 are now carrying through to this real world, while we still explore other parks. And talking about the other parks, we're obviously getting Warworld, and in particular this is going to stem through the plotline of Maeve. I think we're also going to see this season how some of the parks are connected in a three-dimensional space, because obviously if we go back to season 1, at the end of season 1 when Maeve and the gang stumble upon Shogun World, that facility was right next to Westworld. Yet when Maeve went into kind of Shogun World in season 2 with all of her gang, that was on like the edges of the park. It was kind of away from how the facilities are connected, you know, when you're talking about Westworld and Shogun World in terms of their distance between each other. So I think there's some hidden points beneath the surface towards how these different parks are connected. And I think we could find that out this season, and in particular I think we're going to see that through Maeve in Warworld. I think Felix and Sylvester are obviously going to rebuild her, and maybe they put her in Warworld to kind of give her some time, because obviously we see the humans are trying to rebuild and, you know, restructure the system in terms of how Westworld and the hosts work. They've probably shut down the park, or that park, for a degree of time to fix that, but we obviously haven't seen what's going to happen in Warworld, Shogun World, the Raj, how that affects them parks, because remember last season hosts in all of them parks, you know, the Raj and Shogun World, were like damaged as much as the ones in Westworld. So I think it's going to be interesting to see, to start off with, how these parks connect and how that all plays out, and then also you know, what they do with Maeve. Is she now put into Warworld by Felix and Sylvester to kind of give her time to restructure and reformulate where she's going and what she's actually, you know, planning on doing? Obviously we know that Bernard is coming back to get her out of the park, by the looks of it, to stop Dolores. And, you know, that will play out, but I think there will be changes along the way. And I also think the fight or the conflict we see in the trailers between Dolores and Maeve isn't kind of the end of the season, isn't a big fight at the end of the season between them. I actually think what we're seeing is a mid-season battle, because obviously John Nolan has come out and said, and some of the people working on the show have come out and said, that everything we're seeing in the trailers and the footage for Westworld Season 3 is only from the first few episodes. So there's going to be a lot of twists and turns down the road. And now I come to my last kind of prediction and discussion point, and that is the Man in Black. Obviously at the end of season 2 we got the whole Fidelity kind of tease with his character, and how he's now been rebuilt as what looks to be a host, or his consciousness living within a host body. We're not quite sure how that has kind of played out or how that's worked yet, but I'm guessing we're going to explore that more this season. And even though we may not get to that point, I think there's certain pointers that lead us to believe where this could be going. Now, a lot of people are predicting that it's one of two things are happening. Either Dolores or the hosts have rebuilt him to use him for a certain reason, or they have put him into this Fidelity program to essentially torture him for his sins and what he's done over the years. I think both of them predictions or them theories are wrong. I think what we're actually seeing with the Man in Black this season is actually the humans rebuilding him. Now obviously Delos tried their fidelity program with James Delos and the whole program wouldn't work because James Delos and his kind of consciousness would not kind of accept the robot body. I don't think he's the person who can really be put into a host body, but there is one character who could, and I think that's the Man in Black. I mean, after all, he is the character that has spent the most time in Westworld. He's probably had the most brain scanning of any human character who has spent time in Westworld, because obviously we found out in season 2 that they were scanning the guests' brains with the hats that they choose, whether that's with the white hat or the black hat. Obviously they've got loads of data, and that was a big point of season 2 when obviously his wife passed away and, you know, his daughter kind of fell out with him, and obviously she came back into the park to try and get him out, and we all know how that ended. So what I'm saying is that I think the humans obviously are going to get to the point where they need to turn to something, because Dolores is part of a species that can really just rebuild themselves. They are indestructible, and the only way you're going to fight someone like Dolores or the hosts who are indestructible as they are is through rebuilding yourself as a host. And they obviously tried that, you know, with continuing on James Delos's consciousness in season 2. But as I said, Man in Black is kind of a candidate that I think this could work with. I think he is a perfect candidate in which they can maybe figure out the kinks and make this work on. And it would be a perfect kind of conflict that is setting up between the Man in Black and Dolores. The Man in Black being a human that is living on within inside a host body, and Dolores being a host that wants to take down the rotten core of humanity and build a new world. So I personally think that we are seeing that play out. I do think we will get to a point where we explore the Maeve and Dolores conflict more, maybe in later seasons when they focus more on, you know, hosts and the conflict between the hosts themselves, because there's going to be a conflict there even after this war with the humans ends. But I think the main prediction to gather from what we're seeing so far is that we are on the brink of a war between the hosts and the humans, but we're going to see the complications of that and how both sides are kind of fighting with each other or against each other because of their different choices and their different opinions on how the world and how things should go forward. So they are my predictions, or my main predictions, for season 3. Again, I think Dolores is going to use the data of whoever is in Charlotte Hale, the guest data, against the humans this season. I think that is part of her plan. I also think we're going to see how Westworld and all the parks work, and how Bernard kind of goes back and gets Maeve to kind of stop her until the complications arrive, and how this kind of leads into the war, essentially. And then the final one is through the Man in Black. I think the Man in Black is actually being rebuilt by the humans and not the hosts. Again, I could be completely wrong about all of this. Westworld is a very complicated show. It's hard to go into extreme detail until you start to see things play out, but they are my predictions, or my main set of predictions for this season. Again, let me know down below what you think. How do your predictions currently stand for season 3? Let me know and I'll be sure to discuss it with you in the comment section. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. Again, if you want to see more Westworld during the release of the show and all the episodes when they come out, subscribe to the channel, turn on your notifications, and give this video a like rating if you enjoyed it. Hopefully you guys are excited for Westworld season 3. I've been Cortex, and as always, make some noise.